Podcast, a platform where we learn to lead well with other leaders. Where have you been? Haven't seen you in ages. What? Coming to you live from the good land, it's your boy Tyler Richardson, and we are so glad you came today to listen to part 2 of Mind Control Manipulation series. So, basically what we're going to talk about today is the part 2 saga. It'll be a whole lot shorter than part 1. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Baby Jesus. By the way, welcome to the Baby Jesus season. I hope you're enjoying it. You survived Black Friday, I'm hoping. And, we're moving forward. It's a great time. Go put some money in the red bucket, your local Salvation Army Wrangler bell guy. And, the festive season is upon us. So, back to manipulation. So, what I want to talk about today on the part 2 of mind control is the manipulation or manipulator factor. I think a lot of times it's very easy for us to assume that the manipulator is just basically the villain. He or she is just out to ruin our lives. They're out to steal our jobs, out to make sure that we don't elevate in our organization or our company. They're there to make sure that we don't get proper credit. They're here to make sure that I don't have a voice and I don't really say what I think. And they're just evil, 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 evil. But this is what I found out about people, you and I, because in some facet, we all do it. Maybe we do it at different times or we don't realize when we're doing it. But the manipulator bug travels. And I want to break down what I think causes that manipulation to really rise up and to take root and kind of show itself in different situations. And I call it manipulation mathematics. By the way, I apologize. I know I sound really stopped up. It's because I am. And I'm trying to fix it. But man, it's a struggle city. Okay, so anyway. Just pretend I talk like this all the time. So, back to manipulation mathematics while we're here, right? So, this is my manipulation mathematics. It's fear plus assumption equals manipulation, okay? Again, that is fear plus assumption equals manipulation. And this is what I mean by that. It means that we're afraid of what others are going to think and what they're either going to think or what they're going to say, maybe how they're going to react. And that makes us decide we're going to take control. We're going to take control of the situation. We're going to take control of either the conversation, of even the subconscious thoughts. We're going to do anything we can do to try and take control of those aspects because of the fear. So when we manipulate, or when those people, or the leaders around us manipulate us, it's not because those are evil people. It's because they're people that are afraid. And I know that's sometimes kind of hard to really fully understand, but I think if we started looking at ourselves and others in that light, that we're not really being abused as much as those people are abusing themselves because they're in constant torment. They're running themselves ragged, trying to keep up an ideal picture of themselves, an ideal picture of the people that they are leading, and the people that are leading them. They're wanting to make sure that those people above them are saying, "Wow, they're doing so well. They're who could have ever imagined anybody could do it better?" And since those things could all be said of them, but they want to take control. They want to make sure it's said. They want to make sure it's said about a specific event. They want to make sure it's said about a specific decision. They want to make sure that when the chips fall, that they are the ones that they look pretty good, they made the right decision, and blah 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 blah. So what do you do when you're a person that you either catch yourself that you're manipulating, or if you're being led by somebody that's being manipulative? Like, how do you not let that just kind of run down the totem pole? Like, how do you make sure that it's not just water that just kind of flows every direction? How do you get it to stop? And I think it's you got to get rid of something that I call the vague fog. And vague fog to me is basically, if you've ever been in a meeting or maybe a passive conversation by the water cooler or whatever, there's a vague fog that surrounds the conversation where there's maybe 3 people and maybe all 3 people kind of look at each other and the eyes are saying one thing, but the mouths are saying something else. Like, I want to say this, but I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble, so I'm not really going to say what I want to say. Or maybe a leader asks for some constructive criticism about a recent decision, or, hey, we're thinking about doing this, this, and this. What do y'all think? And there's a vague fog of, are we really going to say what we're going to say? Or are we just going to kind of kind of politic this a little bit, just kind of get through it. And again, that fear, I really think, sets a root that the manipulation comes out of, and that's why it's fear plus assumption equals a manipulation. It's not just fear that equals manipulation. It's the assumptions that are brought out of that fear, because I think it's, you don't want somebody to disagree with you. If you're like me, I hate confrontation. I am the worst at it. Most of the problems I have ever had in any professional experience is almost always attributed to the fact that I hate confrontation. I enjoy the vague fog. I enjoy the fact that none of us are really going to say something awkward right now, because I don't want to deal with the awkwardness. And I'm glad that you're okay that I don't tell you the truth, just like you're okay that I don't tell you the truth, and I'm okay that I don't have to tell you the truth. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. And I think it's not that you're lying to each other, but you don't say the truth the way it would be helpful. Like, you say the truth that'll get the job done, but you don't say the truth in a way that really moves us all forward. Kind of like what we were saying in the previous episode, not just moving on, but moving forward. Like, you don't remove the vague fog to that extent. And I think that's something we really got to pay attention to, because I think, again, in our minds, you have to understand where you can stay and where your mind has to leave. You have to understand what you can handle and what you can't handle. And I think that's two-part. I think one aspect of that is you got to understand that we should all be able to adapt. If somebody comes up and one of the leaders around us asks us to do something, we should be able to adapt to that scenario. And if we ask somebody else to do something, they should be able to adapt to that scenario. If you're a musician that travels, you got to be adaptable to different scenarios, different sound systems, different people you'll be working with, different expectations and different audiences. And if you're people that travel to help with team building, you got to be prepared that some people are more prepared than others, and different budgets, it all shakes. You got to be adaptable. But I think you got to what I think where a lot of times where manipulation sneaks in is you've got to understand, where are you okay to adapt and where are you okay to live in constant adaptation. All right. When are you okay to adapt here, adapt here, adapt here, because it's just kind of a momentary thing? It's not really a way of life. Or are you comfortable living in a life where you have no real rhythm and you are constantly adapting? That everybody's emergency is constantly your emergency. That you never really have any firm feet beneath you because you're constantly having to adapt to everybody else's adaptability. I've been in situations where it was constant adaptability, and then I've been in situations where you almost never had to adapt. And I think it works different for different personalities. So I think that's something we have to decide. Can you be okay adapting all the time? Or you're like, I used to do that. Now I'm tired. My brain's tired. My wife wants me home. Like, there's just a lot of things. I sing, my voice is tired, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do something where I can still adapt, but I adapt less. Not necessarily adapting on your terms, but adapting to the point that you don't feel like you want to jump off a cliff. So I think in vague fog moments, if a statement throws you off, or if somebody's look throws you off, I think what you have to do is you need to address it immediately, just like what we talked about before, because that fear is already silent and is already settled and is already kind of existing. And I think what happens is when the looks and the vague fog exists and that silence just continues to grow, that I think is the birthing place for real assumption. And in the assumption is where you think the worst things about the people you lead with. And because it's a vague fog, it's never addressed. It's never dealt with. It's never really brought to the surface where you can deal with it and be like, oh no, that's not what I meant to say at all. Or no, I never wanted you to feel that way. In the vague fog, we're all safe, yet we're all very uncomfortable. And we got to find a way to really deal with that, because the leaders you lead around, you either appreciate them or you patronize them. And that also is from that manipulation place. It's from that place of, if you think you're not a manipulator, you think you appreciate everybody around you. But you got to really open yourself up to honest critique of the people around you and be like, do you feel like I appreciate you, or do you feel like I patronize you? When I asked you to do this task and this task, did I say it patronizing, or did I say it in an appreciative way? And you got to pay attention to that, because you really need to make sure that you have an environment where they could be like, The first three times I felt appreciated. The fourth time, it was actually kind of patronizing. Not that you go around and you live in a world of cotton candy and you're always like uber sensitive, but you do want to have a thermometer in your environment. You do want to have a thermometer of the people you lead around, because if you don't keep track, it's if you're anything like me, it's like a dirty room. You're like, oh, I'll just put this towel on the floor because I'll get it later. And then you come like 3 days later, you're like, what the heck happened in here? That's because you have to be able to have an honest environment where a vague fog honestly just isn't allowed. We're not allowed to be like, oh well, you look like you won't say something. You won't say something? No, I'm good. No, 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 no. This is an environment where we're like, no, if you have something to say, you need to say it. You don't say it out there. But the reason we need you to say it in here is not so we can battle each other at wits. We need you to say it in here because we need to remove all fog so that none of us sit in places of assuming things that are detrimental to ourselves, that are detrimental to our positions, to our value. And that's why you got to get rid of that type of manipulation vibe. And I think, again, it's not you're not useful until you're you. We've said before, like, it's not about being right, it's about being useful. But you're never going to be useful until you are you. And until you get rid of the assuming and the fear mentality, you're not going to be fully you, because then all you're going to be is a yes man, or yes woman. Because, to me, a yes man is less valuable than a man that says yes. And this is what I mean by that. It's because you're either going to be used by the people who are glad that you'll never say no, or you're respected by the people that you could say no to, but you still choose to say yes. Okay? I'm going to say that again. That you're either used by the people who are glad that you will never tell them no, or you are respected by the people that know that you at any moment have every right and the ability to tell them no, but you choose to say yes. That's the difference. And I don't think you have that power among leaders and that trust and that freedom among leaders until you get rid of everything assuming. So I think in that you have to not only, like we said in part one, you have to be very dramatic in guarding your thoughts, but I think on the part two side of it, you have to be able to just have the hard conversations. You have to open if you want to do it in a closed meeting, if you want to have somebody that kind of delegates, whatever it is, or I don't know what kind of environment you lead around, so I don't know if it's a situation that a giant staff meeting is necessarily appropriate. Probably not, but it's you got to have an environment where you can say honestly that we're removing all fear and assumption, because I don't want to manipulate you and I don't want you to manipulate me. And the only reason we would find ourselves manipulating each other is because we're afraid. And there's no reason why we should be leading in fear. I shouldn't be afraid that I'm less valuable, and and you shouldn't be afraid that your voice doesn't count. I shouldn't be afraid that little Johnny over here is elevating and just got promoted, and now everybody seems to really like him for 2 weeks, and now I feel like he's going to come for my job. And listen, there's probably plenty of people, and we're probably around plenty of scenarios where the people above you do not have your best interests at heart. That's just life, and that's probably not going to change. Some people are either over the interests of themselves or your friends, and you can't really handle that. But again, two-test logic. There's two tests going on. God is paying attention to the way you look at them and how your response is to them. God is looking at when you feel like you're being manipulated and when you feel like you're being patronized. Do you let it set root in you where now you just follow through and now you do the exact same thing with the people that you lead? Or do you catch it and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna cut through the vague fog here, and I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not really cool with this. Is there a way we could probably watch the way we talk to each other? And I think that's the biggest thing. I think you gotta really watch how you talk to each other. I think just because you're in a bad mood doesn't give you an excuse to all talk to us like a trash. Just like when I come in a bad mood, that doesn't mean I get to talk to y'all like you're trash. We have to have mutual respect for each other and understand that we all have a right to be here. We all have responsibilities that we all have to pick up, and nobody is immune to that. And everybody's voice counts. Everybody has a right to not live in constant fear that they're going to get fired, or constant fear that they're going to get rejected, or constant fear that everybody's out to get them. And I think we'll all be a lot better for it. Does that make sense? I know that's a little bit more on the heavy side. I try not to make these that heavy, but sometimes, it just is what it is. So sit down, have the awkward conversation, even though you may not be naturally a confrontation person. Even if you want to tell somebody else, maybe that can help you, be the delegator and kind of, walk you through your emotions down with the people you would be having an issue with. Whatever it takes, do it, because when that vague fog is removed and you really feel like you're in a place where you don't have to constantly impress everybody, that is an awesome place to be. So, keep updating. We got a lot of changes happening. Sandbox, at We Zealots on all the socials, and then WeZealots.com. You got that Sandbox link. You click that. And man, I'm so excited this 2-part is over, because you know what? I'm ready to talk about some happier stuff. We're going to be talking about some practical things. A little section I like to call the practical gospels, because as much as I like the ethereal, wouldn't it be nice? I also think sometimes you just gotta have some brass tacks. So that's what we're gonna have for a couple episodes. I'm excited about it. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, give a rate, do all the things you do in the podcast world. We love you, and we will see you next time. And let's remember to play nice in the sandbox.